Hey everyone, we are thrilled to introduce you to a place very close to our heart, blushingintrovert.com, an online store of women's clothing and accessories that make the perfect gift. You see, they're passionate about spreading joy and promoting mental health awareness. Blushingintrovert.com carries cozy women's sweatshirts and quality accessories, tumblers, journals, handmade gifts, and stickers. It's the kind of comfort you'll find in their customer service as well. Everything is made by hand. Everything is in stock, ready to ship directly to your door. Women's accessories are carefully selected to bring out your inner confidence. Blushing Introvert isn't just a store, it's an extension of family. Inspired by the calling to give back, a portion of every purchase supports vital mental health initiatives. So your shopping experience with blushingintrovert.com truly makes a difference. So come check them out on either Etsy or at their online store at blushingintrovert.com and experience the warmth, love, and top-notch customer service at blushingintrovert.com, where fun meets fashion, mental health matters, and you're treated like family. Blushingintrovert.com, your happy place. Visit blushingintrovert.com today. Today we're going to talk about a true cybercrime story that I am just been blown away by, because I still can't believe it hasn't been solved, right? It is the story of exit scams and Ponzi schemes and lessons we can learn from the Gerald Cotton mystery and the Quadriga CX mystery. There's like 2 or 3 really good documentaries on it. One of them's on Netflix, so check it out. It's like A Death in Crypto Land or Trust No One. There's some phenomenal stories. I mean, what we're going to talk about really is kind of what was Quadriga CX, what happened to all this investor money, who were the people behind it. We've got Jerry Cotton, it's Cotten, and he had founded Quadriga CX. So kind of, Mark, walk us through, for the listeners and for the viewers, kind of what was it?
Yeah, so those not familiar, Quadriga CX was owned by Quadriga FinTech Solutions, was the owner-operator. And at the time, they were believed to be Canada's largest cryptocurrency exchange. In 2019, the exchange ceased operations. The company filed for bankruptcy, except they had $215 million in liabilities and about $28 million in assets.
That's insane, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so that investor money that was like single moms, families, retirees, all wanting to ride the wave of the crypto currency boom, right? Back then, especially Bitcoin, which had soared to like really large numbers, right?
It was their largest exchange in all of Canada.
Wow. Okay, so let's talk real quick about what happened to that money, and then we're going to get into the characters behind it, because there's a whole theory behind this kind of collapse that is that this really was an exit scam from the very beginning, and that what alleged to happen really didn't happen at all. So, like you mentioned, in 2019, I think the exchange kind of shut down, right? Kind of stopped
At that
operations.
time, they had 115,000 customers.
That's a ton.
Yeah,
their
money was missing. They could not access it.
Yeah, and so let's keep in mind, during this time, they were taking in millions of dollars of investor money, right? And the way they were doing it is they had created this currency exchange, this cryptocurrency exchange, meaning you wanted to buy Bitcoin and you lived in Canada. Where would you do it? Well, you'd get online, and Quadriga CX was the biggest one. And what was really significant about this one is it had aligned itself with like anti-fraud agencies. So it gave it a like stamp of approval, almost like government authority, like this is a safe place to invest in. And nothing could have been farther from the truth. And during that time, I mean, they held themselves out, taking in hundreds of thousands of dollars from individual investors, as well as millions of dollars overall. And they kind of held themselves out as like the NASDAQ or like the stock exchange, right? Almost like a Charles Schwab or a TD Ameritrade. And
they actually, at one point, they tried to raise the money and get listed on the Canadian Securities Exchange.
Right. Exactly. And then they bailed on that right away,
Yep.
which is kind of interesting. And when you find out the people behind it, it'll all start to kind of come to light. So where it really kind of took off was back in 2017, the massive speculative frenzy from Bitcoin, right? Raised the price of Bitcoin back in 2017 from $1,000 for one Bitcoin to over $20,000. So think about that, right? I mean, you throw in $5,000, all of a sudden you got $100,000. Like that's a big deal, right? It went up 20 times. That's big money. And some of the weird stuff that they were doing behind the scenes is really telling. So,
well, and then in 2018, that's when the Bitcoin prices kind of took a crash and customers were trying to get their money out.
Exactly. And that's how all of this came to light.
And withdraw
right?
the money.
Yeah. And
that started this.
Yeah.
So they had delays in people getting money. There was problems with the processing. Accounts were frozen by the Canadian Imperial Bank of Quadriga. And that's when they made a statement. They issued a statement that they said the ownership of the money, they connected directly to Cotton and not anybody else, but they couldn't really determine who the owner was.
Right.
And then Quadriga said it couldn't access the funds.
Right. And what else was weird?
Growing, yeah.
Yeah, and check out this picture. So this picture is a picture of Jerry Cotton and his wife, Jennifer Robertson's home. And there's millions of dollars of cash just strewn about on their kitchen island. Right? Now, these are the people that controlled the currency exchange. So what's significant about that is this. In 2018, like you just said, when Bitcoin prices crashed, customers wanted to get their money out, right? And but they couldn't. And customers reported delays when attempting to withdraw dollars. The website would kind of spool and then time out. They weren't able to complete it. And one of the unusual things that would happen is Jerry Cotton and Quadriga would liquidate investor funds. This is through the years, and they would cash it out at ATMs. They would cash out these ATMs, and they would have backpacks worth of cash hand delivered to the homes. And we'll hear later from somebody that used to be Jerry Cotton's boss, as well as the other founder of this exchange, on exactly how much cash a backpack holds. Right, Mark? Do you remember that conversation with Brett Johnson, who the Secret Service deemed the original cybercrime godfather? And then that really is kind of one of the telling stories here. So as that cash flow stopped, let's walk people through kind of what happened. As that cash flow stopped, Quadriga CX shut down, right? And then there were a bunch of court filings. So the Canadian Imperial Bank in January 2018, they said, like you just mentioned, they couldn't determine who actually owned some of the funds. And then there were several suits, right? Suits brought in the United States by the New York Attorney General and then the U.S. Security Exchange Commission, all kind of like looking at it as tracking down the investor money or who was actually managing it. But walk us through that. They had this kind of weird teller window system. Can you tell us about that?
Add to the high strangeness of everything. So Quadriga used a really unusual, teller window for customers to withdraw their money. And then rather than pay the customers like via bank wires, told to come to some nondescript building in Laval, Quebec to pick up the cash.
What?
Customers reported that once they were alive, there was nobody in the office or that there was no cash to be dispersed. Yeah, that was their disbursement mechanism. So what they quickly figured was that the funds probably actually were never invested. And what did they do with the money, right? What happened to the money after it went in?
That's just crazy. I know there's been a ton of analysis done here. I know that Chain Analysis took a look at the blockchain. There was a lot of groups that looked at the blockchain, and they found that what's supposed to happen, right? And walk me through this because you have more experience in this than me, but what's supposed to happen is you go to these exchanges, you invest your hard-earned savings, and there's a record in blockchain of the trade, right? If I see in my account with Quadriga that I just invested $10,000 and own $10,000 worth of Bitcoin, right? My account between me and Quadriga will say I own $10,000 of Bitcoin. And as Bitcoin goes up, it says I have more money, right? And as Bitcoin goes down, it says I have less money. But it's not like a regulated stock or option or bond, right? This is blockchain. This is cryptocurrency. So the actual exchange would have happened on the overall blockchain. And all of the investigation that occurred after this whole thing went down and collapsed is that those trades never happened. Yeah. So basically what it was is it's like you and I creating a site, the Brandology Exchange, right? And people would give us, and we'll say, you want to buy Bitcoin, buy it through the Brandology Exchange. And they would give us millions of dollars and we would give them Brandology bucks. But in their account, it would say, you own Bitcoin. You own millions of dollars of Bitcoin. Here you go. And as Bitcoin went up, it would show that it's going up accordingly, right? Or as Bitcoin went down, it was showing it was going down accordingly. Oh, but wait, if you want to take your money back out, we're not letting you, right? Right? Or come
meet us at a building somewhere.
We'll at a building. Yeah, it really
this bizarre. Even gets stranger once you start looking at some of the players involved. Now, you've mentioned Jerry Cotton a couple times.
This is where it gets
Jerry
interesting.
Cotton.
So, yeah, go ahead. You want to tell?
I don't. This is the part of the story that I want to hear about.
Hey everyone, we are thrilled to introduce you to a place very close to our heart, blushingintrovert.com, an online store of women's clothing and accessories that make the perfect gift. You see, they're passionate about spreading joy and promoting mental health awareness. Blushingintrovert.com carries cozy women's sweatshirts and quality accessories, tumblers, journals, handmade gifts, and stickers. It's the kind of comfort you'll find in their customer service as well. Everything is made by hand. Everything is in stock, ready to ship directly to your door. Women's accessories are carefully selected to bring out your inner confidence. Blushing Introvert isn't just a store, it's an extension of family. Inspired by the calling to give back, a portion of every purchase supports vital mental health initiatives. So your shopping experience with blushingintrovert.com truly makes a difference. So come check them out on either Etsy or at their online store at blushingintrovert.com and experience the warmth, love, and top-notch customer service at blushingintrovert.com, where fun meets fashion, mental health matters, and you're treated like family. Blushingintrovert.com, your happy place. Visit blushingintrovert.com today. So I'll tell you, this is really where it got interesting for me. And you know, by having some of these other discussions with some of the other guests that we've had on the show, we've seen and found out information that has not been on any other podcasts or other documentaries. There are things that, like the Netflix documentary, didn't even talk about. And they had investigated people, talked to hundreds of people. One podcast, they actually flew out to India to this place. And we're going to tell you right now why that matters. So Jerry Cotton was born May 11th, 1988 in Belleville, Ontario. It's like 2 hours outside of Toronto. And he attended the Schulich School of Business at York University in Toronto. His parents, Bruce and Cheryl, ran a business selling antiques and collectibles, right off the main highway, normal folks. And while they kind of did that traditional, selling of vintage jewelry and furniture, Jerry really was a tech nerd. He really focused on new digital things. And he graduated from York, got a bachelor's degree, and his career really took off, right? And it's really one of those stories of like the internet nerd turns tycoon. Right. He was a small town Canadian boy who kind of had that Midas touch, and he would do a lot of public speaking. He had founded this, and all of this was really, really, it led to the credibility of why they got to get their exchange, right, approved by like the Anti-Corruption Association of Canada. And that really gave them credibility, and tied with that perfect storm of Bitcoin rising, it really led to them being the biggest one out there. And he had learned about Bitcoin back in Toronto, and he traveled to Vancouver, British Columbia, where then he founds Quadriga back in November 2013. So that's fine, right? Great story. But who did he found it with? And what was he doing before this? Well, when you investigate Jerry Cotton, and I implore everybody, go Google him, like check this out, right? To understand his mindset, we got to understand his partner, his co-founder, right? His co-founder was Michael Patrion, but Michael Patrion isn't Michael Patrion. So we've got Jerry, there's Jerry, Michael Patrion, and a whole bunch of money, Jerry Jennifer. There's the Quadriga logo, and right there, let's check this out. So there have been several interviews that we've investigated in, and Michael Patrion swears that he is Michael Patrion. That's the only person that he's ever been. The court records and the legal documentation does not support that. He was actually born as Omar Dinani. Okay, guy on the left is the convicted felon who was part of Shadow Crew, the original black marketplace, right? The dark web marketplace that Brett Johnson used to run. Okay, the original cybercrime godfather. And we're going to play an interview that we had, a segment of that with Brett Johnson, where he explains Omar Dinani and Jerry Cotton.
So when Beanie Babies were a thing, this was a long time ago, and some of the viewers and listeners may not recall, but these were highly collectible, highly valuable, and sometimes very expensive, basically stuffed animals.
It was like
but certain ones,
right? Yeah,
they came in certain colors. The blue elephant was one that was worth like thousands of dollars. Well, what Brett figured out was that he could get a gray one at like the dollar store and just
dye it blue.
And now he's got the blue elephant, and he can sell it for a whole bunch of money on eBay. And that was kind of the genesis.
And the lesson
Shadow
there
greatly evolved from there, but I always have to giggle a little bit when I think about the genesis of Shadow Crew. But so no, they were responsible for numerous online cyber crimes. Is the reason they got the name that they were, and operated freely, openly, and excessively on the dark. So that's who they were.
Yeah, and one of the things that they would sell online were fake death certificates.
Yeah.
Fake IDs. Not only just in when we play Brett's segment, which we'll do here in just a second, we're going to explain that it all had to do with like the dead baby method. There was this whole method that they found from some movie back in the day, right? And that was the impetus for it. What they're able to do is get the social security numbers from children that had died years before and take those over because they hadn't been registered with the Social Security Administration. And then they were able to do that. They were also able to sell fake death certificates. And which is why so many people believe, right? It's logical to believe this was an exit scam from the beginning. An exit scam means we are going to create an entity, take in a bunch of money, and walk away, right? We're going to say that we died and get a new identity and walk away with all the money that we took. That's an exit scam. It happens all the time. As outrageous as it sounds, it happens all the time. And here's why. What was the lesson that Brett Johnson talked about that blue elephant? Yeah. What he learned, ladies and gentlemen, is that when you do a scam like that, if you just delay enough, most people will never tell law enforcement, because they're embarrassed. Just like most people, when they invest money and they lose it, they won't report it to people, right? Because they're embarrassed. And most people are embarrassed to say, I bought this blue elephant trying to be greedy or trying to make some investment on some Beanie Baby, and I got this dumb little blue thing. I reached out to the guy 10, 12 times. He never responded back, so I walked away, right? That's what the lesson is that founded Shadow Crew on, is that the human behavior of giving up, of I don't want people to know how stupid I feel I was, right? Keeps them from doing it. And this is a lesson that Jerry Cotton learned when he was doing the same thing. As a child, he created these websites that would sell e-gold. He would take in money. There's like 3 or 4 instances of this. And he would take in money and then shut down the website and issue statements to people saying, we are sorry, the exchange is closed. We're all done. So Mark, before he even founds Quadriga, he had done this a couple times, and he had worked with this guy, and he had been part of Shadow Crew. So you see how the mentality and everything was all set up, right? All in the beginning. So he goes on, he continues to build this, and then, eventually he goes and he meets Jennifer Robertson. Okay. And there's been a lot of people saying she was in on this. Okay. It's logical to think that because she did stand to inherit a lot of money, but I'll tell you my personal view is I don't think she was. I think she was one of the people that he burned. Okay. And maybe he told her right at the end and just said, I'm going away. Goodbye. We're done. And maybe she's heartbroken, but he set it up so that the kids will always be paid for, right? And he'll leave her millions of dollars. But let's talk about their relationship just real quick. They met back in 2014 when Jennifer Robertson swiped right on Tinder for Jerry Cotton's Tinder profile. I think it's significant, the timeline, because it supports her innocence, right? She wasn't around at the founding when Jerry and Michael Petrian were talking and founded this. She wasn't around. She came in afterward. Yeah, she came in.
Deniability there.
Yeah, exactly. He had told her, I work in Bitcoin. And as that rose in value, right, he was like doing speaking engagements. He was in the local news. Like people were like, this young tech whiz kid is phenomenal. Meanwhile, his only tech wizardry was, doing exit schemes and Ponzi, right? And for those that, I think we've heard the phrase, what a Ponzi scheme is this. You take in money, and in the segment that we're going to play right now for you from Brett Johnson, he'll kind of walk you through it. But look, a Ponzi scheme is where you take in the money, right? Assume like people believe it's a legitimate cause. You take in the money and then you steal the money. I mean, that's it, right? And then as a percentage of those people want to get their money back, you keep taking in new money, and then you pay the percentage of the people that are wanting to withdraw their money because the fake stock went down or whatever, and you just pay them back. But you've stolen the core amount, right? You take in $100 million, and 5% of those people want to withdraw, but you keep taking in 10 million, 10 million, 10 million. You go ahead and you pay those people back with the new money that you get. The problem with a Ponzi scheme is when the new money dries up, because you've already spent and stolen the core amount. And that's what happened here. Like what Mark just explained, when Bitcoin crashed, they did a run on the bank. They did a run on the exchange. They wanted their money back. He didn't have it, right? And not only didn't he have it, but he had to find a way out because he knew he was going to go down and go to prison because he had taken millions of dollars from people. They had met. Now, according to Jennifer, this all kind of came to fruition, right? The exit scam kind of hits on December 9th, 2018. So Bitcoin's taking a dive throughout the year. And so what happens is Jennifer and Jerry Cotton take a honeymoon, right? South of France. Now, during the years before, during that Bitcoin rise, they had bought in like 20 multi-million-dollar homes, like investment properties. Mark, they had a plane that they bought, like always going to the best restaurants, traveling all over the world. There are pictures of them all over the place. We have a couple of them here that we'll share with people. This is Jerry in his I look like Simon and Garfunkel look with my intelligence. There's the cash again. Here's Jennifer right around the time when they met. And this is the place that they went to. They went to this place it looks like a plaza. It's supposed to be like a Mecca. It's in this tiny little town in India, right? That's where they plan their honeymoon, in India, in a little town. Okay.
All that money, you can go anywhere you want, and that's where they went.
And they had, right? In the year or two before, they had traveled all over the world, south of France, right? London, like all these places, right? So for your honeymoon, as a jet-setting multimillionaire, you choose a little town in India, and not just any little town. We'll hear from Brett Johnson about how that town is notorious for being able to be a haven for identity theft, meaning you want a new identity, you go to that town in India.
Oh.
You want a death certificate, you want medical records that can show something so that you can have a fake Social Security claim and collect money, or you need the medical records for it, they'll get them for you.
Wait, and this is the same guy that went to prison for identity theft.
Yeah, it was.
Now he's there?
No, he didn't go there. That's Michael Patrian.
Okay.
This is Jerry Cotton.
Okay, Omar.
Yeah, right. Omar Dinani. He's not there. He's not there in India. In fact, he had dropped out. The reason he didn't get indicted when all this came about is because he actually had cashed out of Quadriga before the crash. Oh. So he went on and did something else. In fact, you can go look him up. He's on the run. They think he's in Thailand right now because he was like the CFO of another exchange called Wonderland. This is years after this event, and hadn't told anybody about his past. And then when they found it out, they kind of got rid of him. And so he has millions of dollars in his crypto wallet, and he's kind of hiding out over in Thailand, probably with Jerry Cotton, right? Wow. That's what a lot of people believe. So what's really odd is that so that picture that we're showing right here, this picture right here, that's of the hotel. It's called the Optery Ravilas in Jaipur, India, and Jaipur is the town that is notorious for identity theft, being able to buy fake medical records, things like that. It's a really, really odd place. It's a red flag of the many that that we know about here. But it's a really odd place to go take your honeymoon when you can travel and have been traveling together, Jerry and Jennifer, all over the world. It makes no sense. But it's not an odd place if you want to disappear. If you want the exit scam to happen, it's the perfect place. So they go and he allegedly dies at this time. So what we know is that this place, like I mentioned, is notorious for it. But here, check this out, Mark. Investigative journalists, 2 of them, right, researching this case, actually went to that town.
In India?
Yeah, they flew out there. They went there. And the one that it's known for getting fake IDs and stuff like that. And they spoke to doctors and people there. And they even tried to obtain a fake death certificate. And guess what?
What happened?
They did.
They got a fake death certificate?
They only had to talk to one guy. They asked around, where can I get this done? They go, you go talk to that guy.
Well, that had to cost a lot.
They got one guy. It cost him $200 American. Oh, and by the end of the day, he walked out of there with an official death certificate. Wow. Like official, like it's recognized in the United States. It's recognized all over the world. That's how easy this is, right? That is the shocking part of this. So at some point, right, Jerry Cotton allegedly dies, okay? Jennifer Robertson claims that she accompanies him to a hospital in Jaipur, right, on December 8th. He was diagnosed with these stomach issues, right? Shock, peritonitis, intestinal obstruction. And on the 9th, he allegedly dies of Crohn's disease. Okay. He was 30 years old. So everything I say sounds more and more ridiculous, right?
Yeah.
He's 30. He dies of a disease that only in extremely rare cases does anybody die of Crohn's disease, right? He also had never been hospitalized for it or had any weird. No, all of a sudden on the day they're in this weird town, right? Like on their honeymoon, and it's only them together. Does this allegedly happen? It makes no sense at all. It defies logic. It gets better though. So check this out. What happens 2 weeks before that? 2 weeks before that, Jerry Cotton bought 2 URLs for towns in India for a police department, and for that town in India for a mortuary. And Brett Johnson.
Wait a minute. 2 weeks prior to his death, in this small town that's notorious for fake IDs, death certificates, whatever, he had bought 2 URLs for a police station for a mortuary funeral home.
Yeah, you can't make this stuff up, man. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and then it gets better. 2 weeks before, guess what else he did? He created his will, leaving millions of dollars to her, to Jennifer. Right. So, and then on the day of this alleged death, right, here's what happened. Someone on behalf of Cotton, right, Jerry Cotton, nobody knows who, they contacted a doctor that was later interviewed on one of these documentaries and podcasts that are out there, which we'll throw lists of all of the different resources and all the stuff in the show notes. Check out those documentaries. They're really bizarre. Like there's people that have flown out there. They've been investigating this for years. Why? Because people lost their life savings from this idiot. Right. They contacted the doctor that had been called by someone, right? He had been contacted by someone and they had wanted him to do a death certificate, right, of Jerry Cotton. But the body was at a hotel, not at a mortuary, a morgue, or a hospital. And so he refused. He's like, I'm not going to do that. It's over at a hotel. Bring it over to the actual morgue, and then I can go and see the body and do that. They wanted it done remotely. Which is weird because I thought he died at the hospital.
At the hospital.
Yeah. Why is he at the hotel? Like some of the stuff just makes no sense whatsoever. His body was, according to the death certificate, his body was embalmed at a medical school, unsupervised and not at a mortuary or at a funeral home. Okay, where it's regulated. And then it was all closed casket. No human being has seen his body since it's died, other than allegedly Jennifer. And it was transported back to Canada in a closed casket where they had a closed casket funeral.
Of course.
Right? And there's never been an autopsy. There are attorneys for the victims who lost millions of dollars who have filed suit asking for the courts to do an autopsy, because if you do an autopsy, at least then you know. Yeah. Is the body even in the casket? Is there a body? Is there anything in that casket other than a big smiley face? Right. And plane tickets to Thailand. Like, what's in there? That's never been approved. Like, it still has never been done. So literally no single human being has done. But on December 10th, there was a death certificate issued by Jaipur, India. Okay. The local municipality, right? Which is known for having created fake ones. It's just shocking. The will had been signed on November 27th, 2018, 12 days before he allegedly died. And in that will, it left Jennifer Robertson the entire $9.6 million estate, named her as the trustee, and that estate included an airplane, a sailboat, a 2017 Lexus, real estate in Nova Scotia and British Columbia, a $100,000 trust fund which was made to provide lifelong care for Jerry Cotton's 2 Chihuahuas in case
he put the Chihuahuas in his will.
Yes. And
that's good planning, I guess.
Of course. And then it gets weirder too. They don't tell anybody that he's dead. So they wait more than 30 days after he formally dies, right? Not for him to get away and to accomplish the new identity he got and to fly over to Thailand or whatever, right? No, not for that. But they don't tell anybody. And Quadriga CX continues to take in new investor money.
Wait a minute. After he's dead, they don't tell anybody, but they continue to take more money.
Exactly.
Is that how they even
day after day. And like I said, I don't think Jennifer herself was involved, at least in the beginning. And I have questions around whether she was involved at the end, right? She told CBC, the Canadian broadcast company, their national publication, that she knew nothing of the widespread fraud that Jerry Cotton had, that later was found when Ernst & Young did the audit and when other investigators found out that he had been playing with, he'd been using it as his own slush fund the entire time. She said, I hadn't understood how Quadriga had held money in the first place. I thought it was just a trade. There were many things about Quadriga that I did not understand. I mean, in the beginning, right, when she first met Jerry, she was involved in processing some funds, right, acting as a funnel for customer money on behalf of Quadriga, right? So, and then in the months that followed, investigators uncovered that Cotton had been moving money from the exchange to his personal accounts and engaging in other bad behavior, right? And she's just kind of had enough. She goes, I just hate all the questions. It seems like I should have known. And she told this to CBC's Andrew Chang. He said, look, I've already said it a million times. I don't know. I'm tired of defending myself for something I didn't do. She's never... Yeah, and look, dude, she's never been under investigation. She's never faced any criminal charges. So I've got to think if there was some evidence there, they probably would have done it. They probably would have done something. Right. And I'll tell you the kicker, the reason why I kind of think she was duped in somehow, right, was that after his death and after all the claims and all the lawsuits and the investigations, the FBI got involved, the Canadian Mounted Police got involved. After that, she agreed to forfeit $12 million in assets to the claims.
Oh, really? She gave it back.
Yeah. That included vehicles and real estate. She was allowed to keep $90,000 in cash, $20,000 in retirement savings, a 2015 Jeep Cherokee, $15,000 in furniture, and some jewelry, which included her wedding band. That's not unreasonable.
It's not like she's like a millionaire in that case.
No.
You got 90 and 20,000 in retirement. What'd you say? A 2015 Jeep?
Yeah. So again, it wasn't until January 14th, 2019, like more than 30 days after he allegedly died, that they announced, Quadriga formally announces that Jerry Cotton had died the month prior from Crohn's disease. And they claimed while doing volunteer work at an orphanage in India.
Oh, yeah, of course.
So sad.
Yeah.
Right? You know, really, really kind of amazing. So it's like the end of Quadriga there. But I mean, it's still raised a couple issues, and let's listen to Brett Johnson's segment now.
Robert Mitchum film. Yep. And I think Charles Lofton is the director of that. But if no one's ever watched that film, it's an old black and white movie. It is an absolutely amazing movie. So please, all your listeners, look up Night of the Hunter with Robert Mitchum. It is amazing.
There we go.
There's no financial involved.
We have none. No. We are not financially tied in any way, nor obligated to send them any funds for this endorsement.
Exactly. We are neither endorsed nor affiliated with it. So let's switch gears real quick. Michael Patron, Omar Denani.
Michael Patron.
What was his role in Shadow Crew?
His role in Shadow Crew was a money launderer. There are a couple of cryptocurrency has a couple of precursors, and those precursors are eGold and Liberty Reserve. Both of those payment systems are payment systems that are pretty much built for criminal activity. You because as a criminal, you can't really buy credit card data or child pornography or anything else with US dollars. You need some way to pay for this stuff online. And that was the advent of eGold. As eGold gets indicted, the owners of that, Liberty Reserve, pops up. And I believe the Liberty Reserve guy is still on a United States Most Wanted list someplace. Those were the precursors of today's crypto. The only thing that was missing was the blockchain at that point, but it operated exactly the same. Michael Patron, or back then Omar Denani, he was a money launderer. He offered prepaid debit cards that were linked to your eGold account, and he offered to set up eGold for you to buy and sell it, things like that, as you see a lot of vendors with crypto do today. Right. So that was his start. Now, the interesting thing about criminal activity back then, and this leads into this entire story. The interesting thing about criminal activity back then is that if you were a criminal, you really had to know every single aspect of everything that was going on. You had to know what identity was, how to do fake driver's licenses, how to do drop addresses. You knew the dead baby method. You knew how to launder money. You knew everything. You knew the security of systems, everything. That doesn't work like that today. Today, it's plug and play. The sophistication is no longer in the criminal. It's in the platform itself. But back then, the guys back then knew their shit. They knew what was going on. The reason that's important, excuse me, Michael Patron gets arrested. He serves 4 years in prison. Or I'm sorry, Omar Danani gets arrested. He serves 4 years in prison, gets released, changes his name to Michael Patron.
Now, what did he get? What did he go to prison for? Those 4 years
for money laundering, access device fraud, a few other charges like that. But because of Shadow Crew, those financial cyber crimes.
So he was one of the guys that went down in that sting of Shadow Crew, or did he go down?
Okay,
he was one of the associates of that. Okay, so he gets 4 years. He gets out, changes his name to Michael Patron. There was another Shadow Crew operative back then called. His name was Gerald Cotton.
What?
Oh yeah.
Wait a minute.
So Jerry Cotton,
this is on the rabbit hole, man.
Jerry Cotton was a Shadow Crew operative?
Yes, he was.
Wow.
Yes, he was.
Well, that just, I did, okay.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Okay.
yeah. So he was also on Shadow Crew. Both these guys spent a lot of time on Talk Gold, things like that, dealing with E-Gold, Liberty Reserve, things like that. So he partners with Gerald Cotton. Now,
Jerry Cotton didn't go down on the sting.
No, he did not. He did not.
Okay.
All right. But you got to figure there were 4,000 registered accounts on Shadow Crew. Only 33 people get popped. There were a few, after that they got picked up because of database and people ratting them out, things like that. But certainly under 50, 60 people total out of 4,000 get arrested. Okay.
Wow.
So Michael Patron, Omar Danani changes his name to Michael Patron. He partners with Gerald Cotton. Now, this is conjecture on my part. My thought is that Quadriga, the cryptocurrency exchange that they started, my thought is that started as an exit scam. I really think that
would
both
make
of these
sense.
people, right?
Knowing that story, that would make sense. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just about to get into that. Because
So my thought is that.
So Omar Danani, he would have knowledge of how to create a new identity.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Is that now
connected a whole lot of dots?
one of the vast services in the portfolio of Shadow Crew?
We did this thing called, there were a few different ways that we could do identity back then before, and this is prior to, because 9/11 things change, okay?
Right.
Prior to 9/11, the only thing you had to do for a new identity, my name is Brett Johnson. I would come up with a counterfeit birth certificate in the name of Brett Johnson. Instead of me being born 1970, I would say that I was born in 2022. I would submit that to the Social Security Administration. They would issue a Social Security number for Brett Johnson, born 2022. What I would do then is I would use that Social Security number for that baby in my name, and I would get a job.
Right.
All right. That social would then report to the Social Security Administration, not as a 1-year-old, but as a 52-year-old.
Right.
Social Security would basically say it must be some sort of error, and they would fix that baby's social to be a 1970 social at that point.
What?
And that's the way that worked prior to 9/11.
Yep.
After 9/11, that changed. What also happened, though, is we had this thing called the dead baby method, which still works like a charm, even the United States to a degree. But certainly in India, it works like a charm. In Italy, in Mexico, and all these other countries, it works great. And what happens is my name is Brett Johnson. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go to a graveyard, or I'm going to get online and find a death index, and I'm going to find a child that was born in one state, dies in another, that today would die at a very young age, but would be approximately the same age as I am. Okay. That's going to be my target identity. What I'm going to do from that point is I'm going to order, and we used to do this with the California Death Index. You'd find a name of an individual. For example, one of mine was Joshua Kaplan, born in 1976. You can look him up. He's still on there. But found him. He was born in Kentucky, died in California. I would order the death certificate from California. That way I get the mother's maiden name, the father's father's name, and the place of birth. From there, you order the birth certificate. The reason you're ordering the birth certificate is to make sure that it's not deceased, stamped deceased on it.
Yep.
So that gives you a target right there. While you're doing that, you're going to confirm that while he's been reported as dead in a state, that he's not been reported as dead on the Social Security Master Death Index. And the way it actually works is prior to 1998, in order for the federal government to know that you're dead, the family had to file for a Social Security death benefit. It pays like $218. It took the family, prior to 1998, it took the family to do that. After 1998, the hospital or the mortuary could do that. Okay? So if the death benefit has not been filed, the federal government doesn't know that you're dead.
Exactly.
Okay? And that means that you can assume that dead baby's identity. Now, where that crime actually was invented was a guy named Frederick Forsyth. He wrote a little book called Day of the Jackal. All right? And that's about an assassin who tries to kill Charles de Gaulle. And in that book, Frederick Forsyth invents the dead baby identity method.
Really?
Right? And it turns out it works like a charm. I mean, it works to this day, it still works. So Omar Dhanani would have understood the intricacies of identity, of how to come up with identities, come up with passports, fake IDs, everything else. So what we see happen is we see that Gerald Cotton, and again, I think that Quadriga starts as an exit scam. I think that both Omar Dhanani and Gerald Cotton, they wanted to come up with a currency exchange or a crypto exchange and steal everyone's money. All right. But a funny thing happened along the way. Quadriga becomes legitimate and it becomes a moneymaker. The problem is that evidently Gerald Cotton had already stolen some of the funds out of some of the accounts.
Ruh-roh, Shaggy.
Ruh-roh.
And that still works in a quintessential Ponzi scheme. That would still work so long as Bitcoin kept going or cryptocurrency kept going up, because you would get more and more people still wanting to buy it. Exactly. You would just, if for those few that wanted to get out, you would pay them from the new money that's coming in. Meanwhile, you stole the core money.
Exactly. Yeah. So what happens is Gerald Cotton travels to India, where he mysteriously dies. Now, something that's not been reported in the Netflix documentaries or anything else is that when Gerald Cotton went to India, before he gets there, he registers a couple of domains. And they're like domains to a mortuary in India and to the police station in that province in India as well. Why did he do that?
Why would he do that?
I don't know. But it might be, I mean, the thought that I've got is that, well, you could potentially use that to send back information to stateside saying, hey, this guy actually died, because evidently he died of pneumonia or some such while over in India. Crohn's disease.
Oh, yeah.
And what happens when he dies? They notice that $236 million worth of crypto disappears at the same time. Now, we already know that, looking back now, we know that some of those funds have already been stolen.
Right. Private keys.
Right.
The cold wallet that only one person has the password to. And that person mysteriously dies, although it was a closed casket and nobody saw the dead person.
And has a deep understanding of identity theft.
A deep understanding of all of
somebody who's already served prison time for identity theft. And they're in a town in India, as I understand it, that's known for that.
Yes.
Yeah. That's known for that. And here's the thing. We knew at Shadow Crew that there were areas that were known for that. For example, back when Shadow Crew was operational, you could head your ass down to Key West and buy identities all day long from people down there who were about to die of AIDS. It was a market down there that you could do this kind of stuff with. So we knew these areas at the time. Now, the problem is that Omar Dhanani, a.k.a. Michael Patron, he doesn't get indicted because evidently he dropped out of Quadriga before any of this stuff happens. Now, you would think that no one would ever hear of Omar Dhanani, Michael Patron again after that. Done. However, that's not true, is it? because
No.
about 6-8 months ago, Wonderland Time pops up.
Yep.
Token
yep.
going off at $10,800 a pop. What happens though? People find out that the chief financial officer is Michael Patron.
So walk us through Wonderland Time. What was Wonderland Time?
Wonderland Time is one of these DeFi tokens. So you've got the problem with crypto, and I think that's why you see people like Gerald Cotton, Michael Patron, all these other individuals that do rug pulls and scams and everything else. It's an unregulated vertical.
Exactly.
You can get by with a lot of crime and make a lot of money and not have to worry about jail time. And I think that's exactly why Michael Patron and Gerald Cotton were there, because it is an unregulated industry.
And people don't even understand it. People don't even understand. I mean, look at one coin that Ruja Ignatova is on the U.S. Most Wanted today. She left, there's billions missing or hundreds of millions missing, and she just disappeared off the face of the earth. And one coin had hundreds of millions of dollars, actually billions of dollars of people's investment, right? It wasn't even a cryptocurrency. There was no blockchain behind it.
There was nothing to it.
We're going to give you brandology bucks. We're like, give us your life savings. We're going to give you an account that shows, it sounds almost like what Bernie Madoff was doing. We'll give you a piece of paper that shows you're making a lot of money. Keep giving us more money. And you just like, look, on paper, I'm really wealthy, but try and get your money out. Like, oh, that can happen because it's not real. It's brandology bucks, right?
But think about, and again, think about that damn Beanie Baby at the beginning of our show today.
Yeah.
All right. With crypto, you've got people again who are really wanting something. They've been told you're going to be rich. So all of a sudden, that logic, that reason goes out the window.
Yeah.
And they fancy themselves investors. They're not investors. They're gamblers. They're getting their damn investment advice from Reddit, for God's sakes.
Right.
Yep.
So these are all issues of people who simply do not think rationally anymore.
Right. And the gamification, the new ways that you can trade now, where you can do it from an app on your phone through some of these platforms. And no disrespect to those platforms. No. But kids that aren't sophisticated are like, well, I'm going to get some crypto, and here's a new crypto, and they're all trying to ride that initial Bitcoin, rise where it went from a few cents or a few bucks to over $50,000 for one single Bitcoin at one time, right?
You're right. But the problem is you can look it up. So you can do a Google search. You can pay some dude $200, and he'll make you an Ether token or a BSC token, Binance token. $200. From there, you open up a Telegram channel, a Discord channel, have it populated with bots that constantly talk about how great the token is.
Right.
You get over to Reddit, start talking about pump the price up. What are you going to do? You're going to do this thing called a rug pull. So you get people who buy is back. And I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? And he's like, look at the Wonderland Time subreddit. And it was right as this stuff was going on. Michael Patron it came out that he was the chief financial officer of Wonderland Time. The main developer knew it the entire time.
Wow.
And admits it. And the token goes from $10,800 down to $117 in the space of like 4 days.
Ouch.
So you can think about that. You've got retirement funds. You've got everyone's life savings, everything else invested in this token that is now completely bankrupt. And the problem with that, and this is this Reddit echo chamber type thing that goes on. The problem is you've got people that have lost everything because you've got a criminal that's associated with this, yet you've still got victims that come in that are trying to convince themselves that, no, it's legitimate. It's going to work out just fine. So you have these conversations of people saying, I've lost everything. And meanwhile, you've got other people saying, oh, keep holding. It's going to go right back up.
It's going back up. It's going back up.
So Patron his ass ends up over in Thailand. The last I heard, he was in Thailand. His Ether wallet, and this is before the latest crash, his Ether wallet at one point was $50 million I know it dropped down to 35 million. I don't know what it's valued at right now.
Wow.
But and still not indicted. Why? Because there's no damn regulation yet.
No.
Right. There's
crypto.
nothing to indict them on. There's nothing
Yeah.
on the books.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
I mean, it is. It's absolutely insane when you think that you can steal that kind of money. You can ruin lives. People commit suicide, everything else, and you walk away unscathed. Something's wrong with that.
All right. So from that, there's quite a bit to unpack there. Again, to remind the viewers, Brett Johnson went to federal prison, worked for the Secret Service. He's now completely reformed and one of the national leaders for cybersecurity and anti-fraud, and works closely with federal law enforcement. And because he knows how the criminal mind works, and he knows how these exit scams and these account takeovers and how identity theft works. He just explained that Michael Patrian knew how to do this. Jerry Cotton was somebody that worked on Shadow Crew, right? These guys, and Jerry Cotton, as we know from the other investigation, that he had done this even as a kid when he was 15, 16 years old through e-gold, right, which was the precursor to cryptocurrency. They would make this stuff up. He would go do a Ponzi scheme, take in money, and then shut down. And they all learned the same lesson that Brett Johnson did back with that blue elephant, right? If you just keep pushing victims off, they eventually go away and they don't go report to law enforcement. I mean,
that's a crazy story, and that's all legit. And you say there's documentaries available.
Investigative journalists Amy Castor and Takara Small have spent years doing this. There's also a great podcast at Death in Cryptoland, the story of Jerry Cotton and Quadriga CX. That's on the CDC, the Canadian broadcast thing, and then it's just phenomenal. There's the Netflix documentary, and like Trust No One. It's that involves a person that wears a mask because he's afraid for his life, and he talks.
And he talks with a voice disguised
the entire time. Yeah, you're welcome for that.
That was good.
Yeah, it'll give you nightmares. And he talks with a voice disguise, right? His name's QCXINT. He's a masked person, right? And he talks about his reaction to losing his life savings and the investigation. He went on the Reddit threads. He went on the dark web, really found out all of this. And what the findings were that several different organizations found is that at the end of the day, based on the blockchain, this was a Ponzi scheme. Right. This was not a legit
exit scheme from the get-go.
Yeah, it really, really looks like it. I mean, his death kind of sparked an online debate, right? Stringing theories from Reddit to Telegram by those that lost their life savings. And there's more than 76,000 customers that lost money on this. Wow. It's a lot, right? Jennifer Robertson today is she lives in Halifax, Nova Scotia. Last I heard anyway, last I could find online, in Canada with her 2 dogs. And according to Cinemaholic, she's working part-time as a waitress and studying to be an elementary school teacher. Not exactly like jet setting, living in Thailand, flying around.
What a turn of events.
It's part of the reason why I don't think if she was supposed to be involved, maybe she went along with it at the time. Like the only thing I could see that could be bad, like, even if we thought she was involved, I think he burned her too. Like he might've said, I'm going to go take off. We're going to look, this was all like, I could picture it, right? You've got to tell her, look, the reason I brought you to India is because I got to take off, right? We're going to fake my death. I'm going to give you hundreds of millions of dollars. You'll never have to work again. I'll come see you later under a new identity. Okay. But just go along with this. Okay. But even if he did that and she went along with it, even if she did that, she didn't get anything out of it. He burned her eventually too. Like all of
what they needed, body, because with that closed casket, I mean, this all just reeks of just shady behavior, just outright criminality, if that's a word. Nobody's ever seen him dead, right?
No, that's the whole thing. I mean, at the end of the day, Jerry Cotton was a con man. Quadriga CX was a Ponzi scheme. That's my personal opinion. I mean, he wound up losing over $150 million of client funds that he gambled away and spent on himself. And he could, what we learned from people that had employed him and employed his founder, his co-founder, right, is that it's pretty easy to do this. It's not that far out of the realm, right? The body's
had it before.
Yeah, the body's never been exhumed, and we don't even know if there's a body in that closed casket, right? Nobody knows because nobody with any legal authority has ever seen him dead. So, I mean,
we should take a trip to Thailand, see if we can bump into Mr. Jerry Cotton.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you bump into Jerry Cotton, we'll leave you with this. I mean, I appreciate you walking me through. Let me walk through this story because it's a great, great story, and it's just one of those things I can't believe he's not on like the FBI most wanted list. Right. I just can't believe it. Like until you exhume the body, he should be on the most wanted list, right? Like there should be some it's one of the two. That's the least you could do for the people that lost their funds. And maybe it's because they lost their funds on cryptocurrency, right? It's the one thing that we've seen. Look at like what we saw in this years ago. What are we seeing now with FTX? And maybe Binance and maybe Coinbase, who knows, right? But we see these things in this unregulated industry. And I'm absolutely not for regulations and government intervention into the private sector, but dang, man, this is like the Wild West. And they have it's a wolf in sheep's clothing because they portray themselves as a legitimate like stock market, right? Yeah. But it's not. It's freaking brandology bucks.
Yeah, right? Investors beware.
Yeah. So if you bump into Jerry Cotton, tell him his investors will find him and that Brett Johnson says hello.
And we'll include resources, links, and everything in the show notes.
Absolutely. Thanks everybody for listening, and go check out those episodes.